I guess we introduce ourselves first.
Hello and welcome to Fan Battlecast, where we discuss the matchups you pitched to Death Battle. Today we are celebrating my second pitch and my most wanted matchup of all time, Squirrel Girl versus Pepsi Man. With me today I have the Kagurabachi, aka Squirrel Girl's representative.
Yes, I am the Kagurabachi, aka Squirrel Girl's representative. I am a big SMT fan and also a big Marvel fan. I will find a way to connect Squirrel Girl to SMT, don't worry.
Wonderful. On our jury today, we are very stacked as we have Moloch the Kool-Aid Man.
Oh yeah!
We have Polaris the Coca-Cola symbol.
I am John Coca-Cola.
We have Wraith, Disciple of the Witness.
Yeah, hello?
We have the Dark Lore Master.
My icon's really just a Rorschach test at this point.
And we have a stock photo of roasted peanuts and Pepsi. What a great lineup today, folks.
I
Totally
can't wait
fine,
to
so-
hear what roasted peanuts and Pepsi has
Clearly,
to
they're
say.
the best of us all.
Yeah. Okay, so first off, there are a few rules in effect for this cast. If you saw Travis versus Jack Kamen, which for some reason many of you didn't, that was more of a character analysis of these two rather than a debate. And the same is mostly true for today. My alarm went off. While we are still, of course, going to discuss which of these two would win in a death battle together, it is more about just discussing them in general, especially since Pepsi Man in particular is such an under-researched character. So I made the request that this be more of a casual discussion of them, as well as breaking down the debate into 5 key categories, which we will go over. So this is a more laid-back, casual, just discussing them cast today rather than it is a hardcore debate, but we'll of course still vote on the characters. So with that being said, Kagura, would you like to introduce Squirrel Girl to us?
I guess I can. I'll start
All right,
introducing the Squirrel Girl.
just a second. Let me pull up the timer. And
Let me know. Let me know when to start, because I don't know when to start.
you're good.
Oh, okay. So, Squirrel Girl. She first appeared in November of 1991 in Marvel Superheroes number 8. She is an interesting character, to say the least. Squirrel Girl is a mutant with a asterisk connected to that. She basically has the powers of a squirrel. She could do anything a squirrel can do, and she can also talk and communicate with squirrels. She first appeared trying to impress Iron Man, trying to be like, hey, Iron Man, let's be partners. And then later on, she did her own thing. And now she's a superhero fighting to protect the world in her own way. And that's all you really need to know about Squirrel Girl.
Very nicely done. I think that was a good introduction of her, in my opinion. Okay, so let's talk about Pepsi Man. So when the timer is ready. Okay, so in Japan, a graphic designer named Takuya Onuki was looking for a new advertising mascot for PepsiCo. And as he walked through a convenience store, he looked at the many different colors cans had. And then he thought about how in America there are so many different superheroes and how their colors work with each other. With that, he decided to combine the two and add a dose of whimsical comedic effect and create a character known as Pepsi Man. Pepsi Man's whole purpose is to deliver Pepsi to those who are in need of their drastic thirst quenched. He runs all around the world wherever he needs to go, saving people from evil deeds, stopping people from suffering horrible, horrible tragedies simply by bringing them Pepsi. And all around, he focuses on doing nothing else but helping others like a real superhero should. He may not be the one you want to save you, but he will be the one who is always there to quench your thirst with a refreshing schwa.
Schwa?
Wow.
Yes,
Schwa.
it's a little difficult to describe, but the fizzling sound that the commercials make whenever he waves his hand to someone Pepsi is kind of a that's supposed to sound like fizzing bubbles.
I see it.
And it's
Fizzing
actually
bubble.
yeah,
That
and
sounds
it's
so
actually
funny. Actually,
yeah, it's also based on the Japanese word konnichiwa, which means good afternoon. So when Pepsi Man waves his hand, he is saying hello to you.
oh, that's pretty nice.
Yep.
I think one of the funniest things I remember from like Pepsi Man stuff is when like I think it was like, I don't know who it was playing like the game, but like the audio for the song like broke, so it just like was distorted as shit.
Yeah,
Instead, it was like
sounds about right.
Pepsi Man, like just like broken like every attempt.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so while there are 5 different categories we're going to talk to, strength is actually one that has a lot to go over of all of them, especially for Pepsi Man. So we are going to save that one until later for now. So
All right,
first
that's
off,
fine.
let's actually discuss their general powers. Starting with Squirrel Girl. Besides, of course, having the powers of a squirrel, what can Squirrel Girl do?
Oh, sure, I could get into that. Squirrel Girl has a lot of really unique powers. For example, could you pull up Minecraft? Minecraft.jpg.
This was not what I was expecting.
All right, let's
Let's
go.
hear
More
some of my-
Minecraft scaling.
Let's hear some of my titles.
All right, cool. So Squirrel Girl is an excellent digger. She can dig through dirt,
Oh, okay.
stone, and all
Okay.
sorts of stuff.
Just like a squirrel.
Just like a squirrel, exactly. But it's different because it's human size, person size.
So
For the
what, she
sake
just
of,
pulled
for
this
the sake of
stone?
all the
Please.
folks at home because not everyone understands how comic books work, this is supposed to show the passage of time, not multiple clones of herself, correct?
Yeah, this is not Squirrel Girl cloning herself. Although that would have been a unique power to have.
That'd be
There
a
is
fascinating
definitely-
power. But
There's
yes,
definitely gonna be someone who's going to interpret it that way though. So
I
For
mean,
the
I'm
sake
not
of
opposed to that. Sure,
Yeah.
give Squirrel Girl the ability to multiply herself.
Oh wait, so is she digging through the metal then?
Yeah, she's digging through.
I think the layering on that is supposed to indicate she is digging through those layers. I don't think she's directly digging through the metal, but she could be. It just, without nitpicking the art, the layering on it really makes it look like the drawing of her digging through was placed over a background of the ground that they wanted for it.
Yeah. All right. Let's move
Without
on
being too
to
nitpicky.
let's move on to other stuff Squirrel Girl can do.
Of
Could you
course.
pull up Big Jump?
Hmm.
This was, I think, Squirrel Girl's first appearance. As you can see, big Iron Man fangirl she is.
Oh, absolutely.
She can also jump pretty high. It's what she's showing off to Iron Man here.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's what, top of a tree?
Yes, that is the top of an average forest tree.
yeah, that's the top of the tree.
damn.
Could you?
How tall is the average forest tree? I need that count.
Yo,
Just a second.
It's pretty tall. Okay.
I'll actually pull that up because I have a counter to this. So just a second.
Oh my god.
Down to high jumping.
Counter for a big jump.
Yo, I dislike
yeah.
that high jump.
Samurai Jack ripoff?
Oh my god.
That's
Why
the
not
the fuck
fuck
does she
terrifying.
look
Like
like that?
you know, the
Terrifying.
face.
Yeah, was
The
this
maximum
firm?
recorded height for a tree is a Douglas fir at 326 feet. That's the maximum. The average is between 50 feet to 200 feet.
So,
So, okay.
so clearly
I
this
can't
image
believe
is
you
fear
actually have the number.
manipulation, right?
Yeah, this counts as fear manipulation. Squirrel Girl can fear manipulate you.
Yeah, I'm terrified.
All right. Let's move on to other things Squirrel Girl to do. Could you pull up super knife fingers?
Yes. Yeah. I was hoping you'd talk about this.
Yeah, I am. So as we can see in this scan, Squirrel Girl is using her fingers as a knife to cut through tempered glass.
Oh.
So she doesn't need a knife or a sword. She is the sword. In fact, Squirrel Girl has another sharp thing on her hand. Could you pull up sharp?
This also goes for her teeth as well. Her teeth are remarkably sharp as well.
Oh yeah, her teeth are also pretty sharp too. Yeah. Another thing she's showing off to Iron Man are these things that are called the knuckle spikes. comes out of her knuckles and allows her to carve. And these things are pretty dang sharp. So, could you pull up super sharp?
If you're familiar with Wolverine's bone claws, this is her version of this,
Yeah,
since they are retractable.
they are retractable. It's not like she has them out all the time.
Yep.
So here is Squirrel Girl getting ready to do some damage and pull up I Cut Diamonds. It's sharp enough to cut that. Yeah.
Ooh.
Nice. Very nice.
So it's sharp enough to cut diamonds. However,
Damn.
Pepsi Man's not wearing any diamonds.
Instant counter.
Good reference. Okay, I'm proud of you for that one. Well done.
I could get into other stuff like Squirrel Girl's like
Oh fuck, there's a wasp in my room.
Okay, I think that is
Oh,
a
no.
good start. Thank
do you want me to
Here,
stop
Purple
here?
Wasp.
Do you want me to stop here for now?
Pause there for now so that we can just
Okay.
introduce Pepsiman. But that was a really good start. Thank you. I really wanted you to go over some of her body powers, especially like the claws.
Mhm.
Okay. So to go over Pepsi Man, I forgot to mention these two at the start. And one of them I'll bring up later is I do not have a ton of scans for this, to be clear, because there is a lot to try and manage. And also I have my pitch next week, which will provide more visual context. So please bear with me when I say clearly. Anything I say today, I am not making up. If you want me to provide evidence for something in the future, or I describe this and you're like, okay, prove it, I will be happy to at another point. I just want to make that clear for the audience. And then the second thing is, I forgot to explain this, for Pepsi Man, I am only using official media. And what that means is no internet Pepsi Man feeds. If you've seen people doing videos in a Pepsi Man costume, or like the AVGN, the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on Pepsi Man, those are technically non-canon material, and I don't think it would be fair to try and use that. So just for clarity.
Yeah, I
Pepsi
don't
Man's
think
weakness
that
to Mentos is gone.
Because that would confuse people, and then it would be like, well, can't he just wave his hand and turn people into Pepsi? No, that is a internet creation. That is not something he does.
It's like a skit from outside of control of the original intent.
That's something you could use for AVGN Pepsi Man, though. If you have a matchup
Exactly.
for AVGN Pepsi Man.
Well, we do have it. We actually do have a matchup for internet Pepsi Man, the Wilkins Coffee guy.
What?
But that's a story for another day. Okay. To describe Pepsi Man, again, I'm going to be saying, we'll get to this later just because it's a big bombshell, but Pepsi Man has a very shiny metallic body. At one point, this was believed to be made up of sheets of durable aluminum, but as it turns out, it is made of an unknown metal that comes from space. Pepsi Man is not of this earth, and his body is made of a metal that comes from beyond Earth. It is not made of something like aluminum or normal Pepsi cans. Pepsi itself is more a persona he adopted. So because of that, his metal is a lot tougher than it might seem. But Pepsi Man's got an interesting body. He is a very athletic guy and loves working out and performing all sorts of different sports. He especially loves stuff like skateboarding, snowboarding, surfboarding. He's not always great at them, but he loves doing them. And he will do things like skateboard down a busy street in the Pepsi Man video game. But strangely enough, his physiology is somewhat fascinating because in the Pepsi Man video game, he can quite literally launch himself off the ground, jump off the ground on the skateboard so high it reaches the top of buildings. If you just press the button to make him jump while he's on the skateboard, I don't know if it was a programming error or just how they wanted to have you do it since you're avoiding giant vehicles. He will literally lift himself in the skateboard off the ground so high it reaches over the top of buildings. So that is a little higher than the average tree.
I don't know, man. I feel like Squirrel Girl can jump higher.
If she can, I'm sure she could, but with the feat you gave me, I felt it best to respond in turn. You responded with nature, I respond with city.
Yeah,
I don't know. What if the trees are city level?
I will also mention, in addition to being able to do that with the skateboard, when he is hit by a car, the camera shows him launching into the sky, I would estimate around, let's say, the size of a skyscraper almost, based on the city level. He launches that high when hit by a car, lands back on the ground, twitches a little, and immediately gets back up and starts running again. In the Pepsi Man video game, there aren't lives, there are not a health bar, you just have a time limit. Anything that Pepsi Man gets hit by, he shrugs off and keeps going. And it never even seems to make a single dent on his body.
So
Pepsi
what, it's
Man
kinda like the
takes a lot of
Wario
damage.
Immortality, where it's like he just says, "No, I didn't die to that. Fuck off."
Kind of, actually. In the one of the levels in the video game, there is a section where you're trying to save people from a burning building, and as you're running through the city that's quite literally on fire and cars are crashing. It's a very morbid game. I'm not sure why they made it so violent.
Why? Why?
What happens
Pepsi
is
Man sounds like an awful hero. What
yeah,
are you
he's trying to
talking
save the people from a burning building. It's that the city happens to be in disaster when he's doing
Why?
it.
Why?
That means
Why
he's
did
doing
he-
a terrible job.
He's doing a terrible job.
I'm gonna be
I bring
real
it up
with you.
because there's a part where there are obstacles where you have to run up a ramp to jump over a burning car, but the fire is leaping up, and Pepsi Man walks straight through the flames. No damage. He is
He's
not
a
like knocked
graphic
back or anything.
with
He is immune
I
to
see.
fire.
So
Okay.
it's a good thing wasn't holding anyone or escorting them out the building if that was the case.
That's a
Like
good
he
thing.
just murdered
Yeah.
a person
Well, it's
unintentionally.
a good thing Squirrel Girl doesn't have any fire attacks.
Yeah. Lucky thing. Fire squirrels would be a sight to behold. Okay. Aside from this is for his powers, because he has some very, very strange powers besides just his interesting body. We're just going to jump straight into it at this point. If you, Sherm, could bring up for me, let's start off simple. Reflecting laser eyes.
Hmm.
So to explain what most of these scans are going to be, there is a Pepsi Man novel, and this was a anthology story of three stories written in Japan in 1997, again in Japan. And because of this, I was able to speak with someone who owns a copy of it and gave me the scans of the Japanese print. And unfortunately, I've only been able to run them through Google Translate right now. However, the wording was still cohesive enough and like it formed enough complete sentences that I do have faith it is accurate, just poorly formatted. So yes, I am relying on a Google Translate to figure it out, and it's really complicated, but I still do think it is official, as in yes, he can do this, and it is not the book making Google Translate making something up. All of that being said, the novel provides a lot of context on the idea of Pepsi Man and who he is. And at this scene here, he is fighting a group of evil people who, remember this is Japan, who seemed to be like lizards or something that came from space and were disguised as humans. So when their identity was revealed in this story, when their identity was revealed, one of them started attacking Pepsi Man, and as the book says, along with a buzzing sound, a laser beam emitted from Chin's eyes, slowly burning whatever he was pointing at. Just as the ray of light was aimed at Pepsi Man, something unbelievable happened. What seemed to be Pepsi Man's death cry was actually Chin's. Pepsi Man's silver body repelled the rays, and Chin himself became a victim of the blue light. Pepsi Man's body can reflect lasers, like just outright. He was unhurt by it. It didn't burn him. He reflected it back directly.
Well, he is made of metal, so like
What?
that tracks, and he is
Pepsi-
pretty reflective.
Why is the villain named Chin? That's such a weird name.
Crimson Chin?
Japan. Like the other names of this book are Rico, Mr. Reed, and Fred. Mr.
Okay.
Chin is not.
Clearly,
That's
the
right.
naming department was very, very creative with this.
Yeah, but don't worry. Pepsi Man doesn't just reflect lasers because his body is that tough. No, they decided they need to make his body tougher. Bring out metal fusing body.
Oh.
So with the novel, it was also in the style of choose your own adventure. So you would get like multiple paths, but it was all the same story. And in one of them, Pepsi Man and the investigator he was working with, named Reed, both got kidnapped and were handcuffed in a news van as the bad guys revealed their evil plan. But then Pepsi Man escaped and freed him. And then Reed asked, why handcuffs? And then Pepsi Man says, point blank, my body is capable of fusing with any metal. So fusing the handcuffs to my body is no problem.
Damn.
Huh.
Pepsi
Yo.
Man beats Optimus Prime. I can't
Yo,
believe it.
Vibranium
I
Pepsi
can't
Man
believe
went.
it.
Unfortunately, this does not provide enough context to say like I fuse with the metal and that like increases my density or something. I don't, and it does not provide enough context there, but it still clarifies clearly any metal. It's free to assume that means any metal on Earth, since he is a space metal. So let's say he was fighting Iron Man, and then he just like grabbed Iron Man's boot and starts quite literally fusing the metal boot to his body, and suddenly Iron Man's armor is fizzling out.
Well, Squirrel Girl doesn't have any metal.
Doesn't she have an
Doesn't
Iron
she?
Man suit?
I was about
Yeah.
to say.
Wait.
Oh. Uh-oh. Did I step on something I wasn't supposed to?
Hold on.
What do you think?
I'm looking. Oh shit.
While you look into this, I have one more power to discuss right now. Again,
Well,
this is
Squirrel Girl is
saying
mostly not metal.
Yes, Squirrel Girl herself is not metal. I am not suggesting that. Unless she somehow got a metal mushroom. For now, I have one more scan to show before we get back to Squirrel Girl. Pull up Van Explosion. Said Pepsi Man, who in an instant removed the handcuffs that had held him captive, then did the same for Reed and wrapped his arms around Reed. The moment the shocked Philip and his men pointed their guns at Pepsi Man and tried to fire, Pepsi Man's body emitted a tremendous light, and then a huge explosion occurred, centered around him. The broadcast vehicle was blown apart without a trace, leaving only Pepsi Man and Reed in his arms. Pepsi Man can basically create an explosion with his body just by simply glowing strong enough to cause it, that quite literally basically disintegrated this news van that they were inside without damaging the Reed at all, and quite honestly killed the three men pointing their guns at him.
Pepsi Man's a killer. This man's not a hero.
Yes, in the
He's not
novel
a
he
hero.
is a killer here.
He
But
is
he
a
literally
convicted
he can
killer.
just again, he can just do this. Trying to fight someone who can just casually blow up whenever he wants to without damaging himself at all, with a force that literally without a trace. I think that means a disintegration, if not complete evaporation.
Still,
That's-
that doesn't mean he's a good hero.
I didn't say he's a good person. I just said that that's not something to take lightly.
I know.
Well, he took it pretty lightly. That's why he glowed like that. But still,
I'm more curious to how those two humans survived.
no, it was the one human because it was the one human because
that's
it
one
was
human.
Pepsi Man who caused it, and he grabbed the news reporter the investigator he was with to protect him from it. So he basically like used his body to shield him.
Dang.
So yeah, those are some of the major powers Pepsi Man has, and I'll discuss a few more of them when we get into Arsenal. Is there anything else for Squirrel Girl's powers or capabilities that you would like to discuss right now?
Yeah. So just a few more things.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So Squirrel Girl can chew through steel. Right? I eat the steel. Yeah. She just eats through steel, metal.
Okay.
And then a last thing I want to bring up is, well, two last things. Could you pull up night vision? Now,
Ooh.
Ooh.
Squirrel Girl claims here that she has night vision. So you could
Yeah.
see this as just a claim. Oh, she's just making shit up. But you could also see this as no, she's telling the truth. Oh, she has night vision.
Mhm.
Either way, I don't
Knowing-
think it matters that much, but it is something to point out.
It is something still worth pointing out. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's worth
And
knowing.
then another thing, that stupid acorn in Rivals.
Technically, I'd put that under Arsenal, but yes.
Oh, you want me to save that for Arsenal? Never mind.
No, it works. Yeah, I'd say technically, but it works either. It works either way because it's kind of a power, though it looks more like something she'd have in her arsenal. Because I've never seen her create an acorn and make it grow big outside of rivals, but yes. Yeah, either way. Okay, so that was powers. Would you like to do speed next or arsenal?
We could start with Arsenal.
All right, this is going to be fun. I will let you go first on this one because Pepsi Man has a lot to go over when it comes to arsenal.
Right.
So please go right ahead.
All right, I guess we could start by pulling up the acorn. That stupid acorn from Rivals Go.
Yeah.
So
Official
right
name.
here, it's well known that Squirrel Girl carries around some acorns, and she's capable of flicking them with such accuracy that she doesn't even have to look at a person to hit them with the acorns. She just aims her acorns in their general direction, and they hit.
And hit with enough force to actually knock him.
Yes,
Actually
that
hurt him.
dog right there, he's knocked unconscious from the acorn.
Wow.
Huh.
So Liz, how much energy does it take for the force of an acorn flying at that degree to knock someone out?
In addition, she also has Deadpool's Guide to Supervillain Cards, which is like a series of
Yes.
cards created by Deadpool.
Yes.
And
Oh, I'm so
Squirrel
glad you
Girl,
brought that up.
Squirrel Girl uses these specifically to get information about whatever villain she's up against. Now, obviously, Pepsi Man is not going to be among these.
Well, according to you, he might be. He's not a very good hero.
Oh, yeah, he's not a very good hero. Yeah, he sucks. But
Yeah.
there are Marvel villains who might have similar powers to Pepsi Man. So Squirrel Girl could use that information against him.
Fair point. Fair point. For the folks at home, since I don't think we have a scan, the cards are numbered as there being over 1,046, and Deadpool hand drew all of them for her. He likes her that much.
Oh.
Yeah,
They're very close friends.
yeah. Squirrel Girl and Deadpool besties.
His hand must
I
have fallen
didn't
off
pull up
after
a scan for this because I already had too much. And
No
also-
problem. Just I wanted to mention that for the folks at home, that that's how many she has. So it's a very strong variety.
Yeah. Another arsenal thing that Squirrel Girl has. Could you pull up teleporter pad? Mount. Yeah. Squirrel Girl has a teleporter, so she can teleport. And right here, she's teleporting from New York to somewhere in Canada, so it is a fairly big range where she can teleport.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
How big is this teleporter though?
How big is it? I mean, I assume it had to be pretty portable, considering she uses it very, very casually here.
All right. It's the difference between I can pull it out in my pocket and I have it set up in my room at home. Is just what I mean.
Oh.
Yeah. Minor thing, but okay.
She has the Squirrel Gig,
Mm-hmm.
which is this like vehicle for Squirrel Girl that is like a little helicopter. I don't have a scan of it, but it's like
I know what you're
basically
talking
a
about.
gift, a Secret Santa gift, and she sometimes uses it.
Yeah.
It's a very funny looking vehicle.
Yeah, it's cute. It looks like something that would have been a great toy, but doesn't exist, sadly. But yeah, I do like it. It's very cute. But it is a helicopter. It's not like, say, the fighter jet or something. That would be cooler.
It's a helicopter.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
The biggest thing about her arsenal. Could you pull up? That's nuts. This is the biggest and most important thing, I promise.
Oh.
Squirrel Girl carries around a pack of nuts
Yes.
everywhere she goes.
Yes.
She just has them.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
What did the nuts do?
They you eat them and you get some energy, which is
They do-
burned up
Yo,
as you exercise.
yo, that's a good
They
amp,
do-
not gonna lie.
Yeah, they directly give her a significant boost in energy because of her squirrel-like features. It is not just like I eat nuts because I feel like it.
Well, that too, yeah.
So it's essentially kind of like a stamina boost.
And
Okay,
also the squirrels, obviously. That's the
Yes,
last
I was
thing
going to
I
ask. I was going to make sure you talked about those.
Could you actually let's pull up Squirrel Stampede.
Mm-hmm.
Squirrel Stampede.
I hate that ult so much. I hate it. It's
So Squirrel Girl, of course, can summon the squirrels, and they all come out and they
Hey.
all like charge at the enemy, and they all can do damage to the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of squirrels on Earth.
Yes.
If we look up the squirrel population, uh,
Oh, dear.
there are approximately, it's unknown how many exactly there are, but there are estimated that there are around 4 to 10 billion squirrels on Earth.
That's a lot of squirrels.
Yes, that
Sounds
is a
about right.
lot of squirrels.
Sounds about right. And I've got to geek out about this so much is that not only does she have so many squirrels, she does some very creative things with them. There's a time where she's fighting Whiplash, so she summons a lot of them to just pin him down, like he is covered in them like a blanket and cannot move. There's a time where she has them crowd around her like a form of armor, and then uses that like a cocoon that she then sneaks out of to leave an enemy distracted. She is very creative with her squirrel friends instead of just saying, attack him, go, which is a very fun thing about her.
Mhm.
Okay. Did you have any major piece of the arsenal to bring up, like an Iron Man armor or something?
She did have an Iron Man armor, but I'm not certain if we could give that to her. It's something to note. She did have like some sort of like iron squirrel. I think it was called Iron Squirrel, right?
Yes. So because I was going to talk about the fusing metal, I've looked into it and I've read the original story. The Iron Squirrel Mark I is a suit of armor that was a gift from Tony. And it was a gift in that she found it and then said, I was told long ago by Tony Stark that if I ever needed help, to just say these 3 words, Victor Von Doomship. And that gave her access to the suit. And then when I talked to her, it said that it could reform itself however she needed, and then created a metal tail for her to fit her tail in. So yes, it is something she has direct access to because it was a gift to her from Tony Stark. And then there's a Mark II version that is capable of launching itself into space, which is
Right.
how she met Galactus.
Okay. Then yeah.
So in my humble opinion, at least the Mark I should be given to her.
All right. Yeah. Then we could give it to her. It's the Iron Squirrel. I think it could do basically everything a standard Iron Man armor can do, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Though it is susceptible to electricity because Whiplash once attacked her thinking it was Iron Man, and the electricity caused the suit to shut down, though she was fine. She wasn't hurt much by it.
Right.
Okay. I think that's a good spot. We will go into Pepsi Man now because he's got quite a bit, actually. To quickly keep up with chat a little, regarding a floating shopping list, yes, Fighting Vipers is canon to canon material for Pepsi Man. I will bring that up when we get into strength. Fighting Vipers is a fighting game from the Sega Saturn that Pepsi Man is a playable character in. So I will get into that when we discuss strength. Yes, Squirrel Girl has access to her slingshot because that is the acorns. I don't see any reason she shouldn't have that. Will a can of cola not give you a more significant boost due to sugar content? Sherm, if you have access to it, please bring up the slide titled Sugar Squirrels, because we were going to discuss this. This is clearly the most important discussion in the entire debate to have. Is it really okay for a small hyperactive rodent to eat its weight in sugar? They'll manage. I've been asked several times about could squirrels survive literally drinking the Pepsi? Would that be too much for them? A few of us did the math, and the amount of sugar in a can of Pepsi really isn't too much that the squirrels would really be that affected by it. And in this scene here, they are all eating macaroons, which are extremely sugary little French delicacies. So I really think at the absolute worst, the squirrels just get a little hyperactive if they happen to outright drink Pepsi, if it was all lying on the ground during the fight and whatnot. Clearly the most important point in this entire debate, but it of course matters.
The squirrels are built different, all right?
You gotta debunk the hacks, man. You gotta debunk that.
Yeah. Okay, so Pepsi Man's arsenal. This is fascinating. And again, to be clear, It's my matchup, and I am not bending the rules, but having fun with the rules. I felt it would be fair that Pepsi Man, as an official PepsiCo character, should have access to some things PepsiCo has, as long as they were created after his inception. Since he was created in 1994,
Oh.
anything that PepsiCo like used or owns that is genuinely versus viable, I'm not suggesting like Pepsi Man, send out the army of PepsiCo workers to fight the squirrels for you. That makes no sense. He would not do that. But like, say, what if PepsiCo, like in 1997, decided that we're going to do a little sweepstakes? You know,
And this is
soda.
the Pepsi Jet.
Yep, soda does sweepstakes, you know, but we need something big to get people to do it. I know, for a commercial, let's have a Harrier fighter jet with Pepsi logos on it shown off. In 1996, Pepsi launched a promotional campaign called Pepsi Stuff, where customers could redeem points for various items, including a Harrier jet. The commercial showed a teenager flying a Harrier jet to school for 7 million Pepsi points. This story led to a really fascinating lawsuit about the jet itself and the sweepstakes that I do recommend you look up, called Leonard versus PepsiCo Inc. But
Oh, yeah, I know this one.
considering they featured the Harrier jet in an official commercial, and it was labeled with Pepsi logos on it, it was not just like a random jet. I do think it's fair, at least for the sake of it's fun, to say Pepsi should be able to go to PepsiCo, grab his fighter jet, and fly around in it. And a fighter jet is a lot more destructive than a helicopter.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But if you're going to say, okay, sure, that's really stupid, but sure, let's see something Pepsi Man has actually been shown to use. He has a car.
Oh,
in
hell
a
yeah.
different sweepstakes that was made in 1994 when Pepsi Man's commercials were starting out, he was featured in a sweepstakes commercial for a Chevrolet Corvette, and he personally drove in it. And then he got out of the car, talked to a guy in Japanese, because Pepsi Man is from Japan. He does not speak English, but he does speak fluent Japanese with an American accent for some reason, but it is still strictly Japanese. And then he waved his hand, gave the guy a Pepsi, got back in his Corvette, and drove off. Then in the novel, the Corvette is mentioned twice. So it is something that Pepsi Man personally owns and drives. He does personally use it. It is not just like Pepsi asked him to promote it by driving around in it.
How did Pepsi Man
That
get
makes sense.
ownership of that, though?
That's a good question.
They owed him one. With all the work he does for them, providing Pepsi to the world, why wouldn't they let him keep it?
Good point, I guess. Although I would question them on that if he does good. But yeah.
Well, and there is also the other possibility is that it's Pepsi Man's car, but it's not. But I will explain that part later. It will make sense when I explain it. As for his other powers, Pepsi Man, of course, has a lot of different tools at his disposal that might not seem helpful, but certainly keep a good variety. He has a skateboard, a snowboard, a surfboard, all of which he is very fluent at getting around on, especially the skateboard. He has a trash can that could serve as a form of armor, even though in the video game it inverts your controls and gets confusing. It is still a method of defense, albeit briefly, since the bottom is still completely vulnerable to squirrels crawling up your legs. And of course, he's not Pepsi Man without his Pepsi cans. For these cans can do quite a few things for him. If you will kindly bring up for me none other than Pepsi Dimension.
Well,
What?
The Pepsi Dimension?
Pepsi?
So
Does this
This
fucker have
is-
the Columbo dimension?
Cosmology
a
scaling?
this is another long story, but I will make it the brief version. On the left is an illustration by Travis Trest, who is a very talented comic book artist, for a Pepsi Man advert. And though I don't know the story behind what he was told to draw, he drew this very impressive picture of both of Pepsi Man's hands glowing with energy and a giant circle behind him bursting Pepsi cans out in every direction. Just an absolute cavalcade of them. Then on the left, we see this design fully colorized and featured on official Pepsi cans. This illustration has been featured on numerous merchandise, and it is fair to assume this is an official power Pepsi Man has. In fan wikis, This has been dubbed the Pepsi Dimension, but there is no official source for that name. So we don't really have a name for this other than Pepsi Man firing Pepsi cans. You can essentially basically create like an absolute. This is a squirrel stampede, basically.
Pepsi Stampede.
This is his equivalent. I'll think of a good P word later for it, but this is his equivalent. And because this is still versus debating and scaling, we cannot really get a good grasp for how fast these cans are moving. Because he's certainly firing these like projectiles, but we can't really get a good speed for them. So the best guess I have is when Pepsi Man waves his hand in a commercial, we see the soda fizz across the screen, and then suddenly the soda is in the customer's hands. It is pretty much instantly summoned these by waving his hands, and that fizzing transition is a little under 2 seconds. So I think it is fair to say that they can just move pretty damn fast considering how quickly he is able to instantaneously summon them. So it's one thing to have a loaded it's one thing to have a loaded can of Pepsi coming at you because it like if say you're hit over the head with that would still hurt. Now imagine them being fired like bullets at you in a wide range while you're fighting someone.
That's a lot of Pepsis, I'm not gonna lie. Who needs that much Pepsi?
When you're serving Pepsi to the entire world,
maybe some
you
kind
need
of
it.
Pepsi Man.
Say it again.
Say that again.
Boundless amount of Pepsi.
Besides this, you may say, well, sure, yeah, that's helpful and all. He can certainly summon a lot of them, and maybe they could fire like projectiles. That would be a little heavy. But is that really all they do? For some reason, Pepsi cans, at least in Pepsi Man's case, are incredibly versatile because he doesn't just drink them because he likes them. In the novel, just getting splashed on the face by Pepsi, just it touching some of it getting splashed on his face or touching his body, restores all of his energy and can practically heal him. Not like heal him like regenerate something, but heal him like if he is knocked out or he's been tossed around and is exhausted, or if he is unconscious, just splashing some Pepsi on his face immediately woke him back up. In the novel, there's a point where someone is waking up from a bad hangover and feels terrible, and then realizes they don't have any mineral water or coffee at home and are desperately thirsty. And then Pepsi Man shows up suddenly, gives them a Pepsi, and immediately disappears. And once he finished the Pepsi, his hangover instantly cleared and he felt energized. So much like Squirrel Girl's nuts, Pepsi has this energizing effect on people, not in the form of like energy drinks, but in just directly boosting it. It's like an E-tank, basically. Pepsi Man is the Mega Man of soda.
Man, this sounds like Pepsi trying to sell something. I wonder what it is.
No,
They wouldn't do that.
What possibly
They
gave
would
that
never.
away?
They wouldn't make a product extremely overpowered for the purposes of advertisement.
Why on earth would you ever get the idea that PepsiCo, a soda business of all things, was trying to sell me something? Honestly, Pepsi Man is a good hero, darn it.
All right, I see your
And
point.
I insist that you respect the man who is just trying to do some good in this world, provide people by satiating their thirst with the Pepsi they need. Now available at your local grocery stores, convenience stores, wherever you need a refreshing taste of a good cold Pepsi.
No.
Not sponsored, but we could be. Pepsi, please reach out.
Pepsi, reach out.
I will stress, no, we are not sponsored, but I do really want to.
For legal reasons, I must.
much as I love-
as
As much as I love these two, yes, this is literally entirely just a big commercial for Pepsi. I'm aware, but I still like these two.
Wait,
Yeah,
one second. I think the
some
one
of
from
the
my
many-
room just died.
I'm
one from
sure
earlier.
was
Some of the
never
mi-
seen
It's
again.
dead.
That's some of the many takeaways from Pepsi Man's wacky and surprisingly versatile arsenal. And while Squirrel Girl is certainly impressive, she doesn't really have anything besides herself to defend against a fighter jet or a Corvette roaring straight at her. At least not a squirrel gig. Would you like to go into speed next or stamina?
Could we try intelligence? Or is that not a category?
That's not really a category in this, though. We could call that part of stamina.
Okay, sure.
Sure, we'll combine those two because that is fair. She is a very good strategist. I'll give you that. That's a good point to make.
All
Sorry,
right. So
yeah.
Oh no, the wasp
Oh.
isn't dead.
you want me
Wait,
to
the
go
wasp
first?
is not dead.
Oh, the wasp is still there. Oh, hi, Janet.
It's still alive. It came back from the dead. Jesus fuck.
Okay. You want me to start first, Paul?
Oh, sure. Sorry, I didn't give you the go ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So could you pull up Smart Girl? The Squirrel Girl is a very smart and intelligent girl.
Okay. I posted the link to the Corvette commercial in the chat if you'd like to check that one for
So
yourself.
this is Squirrel Girl teaching some class about various subjects. I think specifically this is computer science, right?
Yes. We're an after school class for kids interested in computer science.
Yeah. So Squirrel Girl is just smart enough to teach her own classroom. So she would be a great teacher to you if you needed help with your computer science. Then could you pull up Smart Girl 2? So Squirrel Girl found Dr. Doom's time machine, and she was able to figure out how it worked despite only seeing it and being near it once.
But I have no idea where in the past we're going to wind up. This isn't the past. In fact, it looks more like... So she figured it out, but she didn't get where she was trying to go.
Well, the fact that she was able to figure out how to operate it at all is pretty impressive considering how advanced Doom is, right?
Well, fair enough.
Well, how
Fair
advanced was the time machine?
How advanced is Dr. Doom's time machine? I mean, it could take him to wherever he wants to go in time.
You
No,
dare
but-
challenge
no, but I mean,
Doom's
like-
capabilities and
Yeah.
time travel?
Did somebody just say goon?
I
What?
said Doom.
I was not paying attention. I was kind of
Oh
focused on the wasp.
Sorry, I said
Oh my
Doom.
god.
Because
Oh,
anytime
okay.
we mention Doom, we have to pronounce Doom! Since, of
Wait, you're
course,
saying that
Dr.
like Prince of
Doom
Chaos?
has a lot of interesting relationships with Squirrel Girl over the years.
Oh yeah, We'll get into the Dr. Doom stuff later.
Oh boy, good. All right, so yes, she is a computer science major. While I'm not super versed on where she is currently, like quite literally in real time, where she is right now in the world, right now she's around the age of 20. And in the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl comic, she's around the age of 17 or 18 and entering university to study computer science. So yes, she is very, very technically gifted.
Yeah, Squirrel Girl, I'd say when she first began her superhero career, she was like around 14, 15.
Yes.
Nowadays, she's like in her early 20s.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So,
All right.
She has a lot of experience.
Yes, she does. If we went off of real life dates, she predates Pepsi Man by 3 years, so she would slightly be more experienced there. And then age-wise, it's hard to get a good grasp on that.
yeah, how old is Pepsi Man?
We don't know.
That's a good question.
That's the issue. We
Yeah.
do not know, or at least we don't know about the metal, since of course he is a full-grown man. He is on Earth. He has always been a full-grown man ever since Pepsi Man was created. So, but he was quote unquote born in 1997, since that's the date the novel gives us, even though he was created in real life in 1994. So there's a slight inconsistency there.
Crazy.
Okay, so that's a good example of her intelligence. Do you have any examples of battle strategy or figuring an opponent out? Because that is one of her best skills.
I do not have an exact scan,
No problem.
but I can read off something that I did find.
Sounds good. Since this is now much more about intelligence, we also kind of already covered stamina a little before, so I'll go over the basics. I think Pepsi Man takes this one because while Squirrel Girl is a very gifted individual and a mutant with an asterisk and a superhero, she, of course, is not limitless, and she does not have a limitless supply of energy or endurance. Even with her nuts helping keep up her energy, she is going to eventually get tired. And if, say, for the sake of comparison, if this was down to a war of attrition, or if they were largely in the same equal stats, Pepsi Man would eventually win out since he has much stronger endurance as a whole and can constantly regain his strength and energy by drinking Pepsi or even just splashing it on him. And it is much easier to get a hold of that in the world than it is to constantly try and keep eating nuts. And even then, that is not a limitless supply of energy for her. So he has a much better level of stamina and endurance to go off of comparatively that will keep him in a fight for longer.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I would personally argue that more households in America have like a bunch of nuts that they just left in their pantry and they forgot about, more than they just have cans of Pepsi lying in their fridges. I would just like to argue that point.
Very true. My
Well,
parents always
a good
buy
one.
nuts.
That's a really good point to argue, but I'll kind of point out who's the one who can create Pepsi by waving his hand, and who's the one who carries pouches of nuts.
Damn.
Can't she just
Don't
get
worry,
the
she could
squirrels
just get
to
them.
like
We have
bring
never
nuts to her?
We have she could ask them to, yes, but even then that still relies on them to get them and bring them back to her, whereas Pepsi Man can keep waving his hand and summoning them for any purpose he needs, especially if he's also using them as a form of attack.
All right, but you asked for battle IQ from Squirrel Girl, right?
Please, thank you.
Yeah. All right, I got a couple things I could read off. So there's this one time where Squirrel Girl tricked Kang into destroying his own time travel device. Yeah,
Mm.
and then there's another time where she uses her squirrels to disable airborne missiles. I am not joking.
What?
Ah,
Like
interesting.
I could I could give you the scan right now, but I don't think I can.
I believe you. It'd be wonderful to have
Yeah.
the skin, but I do believe you, and that's fair. If they can tear through, if they can dismantle a missile, it's fair to assume that they could dismantle a jet. Assuming they can hold on to it while it's moving, they could try and dismantle a jet, for example. So that's a good point.
Another crazy IQ feat from Squirrel Girl is that she used walnut dust to reveal the location of several lasers.
Ah, so they are invisible.
Yeah, the lasers were invisible, and she uses walnut dust to reveal their locations.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a counter to something I forgot to bring up, but that's very impressive. Thank you.
And she has
I
a
haven't
lot
seen
of
that one. That's really cool.
she has a lot of other IQ feats, like
Yeah.
forcing a scroll to change their shape, and then tricking Enigma to defeating himself into defeating himself. So
You cut out for a second there. I was worried my screen froze. Could you repeat that?
she tricked Enigma into defeating himself.
Ah, cool. Thank you. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
so she's very smart in both a traditional sense and in terms of battle IQ.
Definitely. And of course, one of the things I praise about her more than almost anything else is her incredible negotiation skills.
Oh
And
yeah,
of course, that won't go a long way in a death battle, but it is fascinating how good she is with communication and just negotiations, especially with the likes of supervillains. Some of her best victories are not done through off screen, but through quite literally talking things out clearly without just saying "let's be friends" and coming to a genuine compromise. Like with, say, Craven the Hunter, she has done this with Mole Man and Nightmare, who is Doctor Strange's arch rival, and she even did it with Galactus himself.
yeah,
Neither of them threw a single attack at each other, but they found a way to work with each other and truly become friends without the Earth being threatened, just through them communicating and finding an alternative.
she is actually canonically Squirrel Girl is rated as having a cosmic tier empathy.
Oh, absolutely. I'd buy that in a second.
She settled like several intergalactic squabbles that could have blown into wars, but they never happened because Squirrel Girl was there just to talk things out.
Absolutely. Like,
Sounds like some Kamen Rider Forza type shit.
yeah.
Herald tier empathy.
Yeah, she has Herald tier
yeah.
empathy. She has Skyfather tier empathy.
To pull from some of DC's lore, if Squirrel Girl was made an Indigo Lantern, which is the Compassion, she would probably be more powerful than the White Lantern, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
Yeah,
That is just
she could beat
how
Kyle
much
Rayner
her genuine
Seal.
empathy and compassion comes from her. And is again part of why I like these two so much is not just being a superhero is not just trying to save the world, and you don't always have to throw a punch to save the world, but you also don't have to save the world to be a superhero. You just have to save someone else's world, no matter how small it is. And both of these characters, especially Squirrel Girl, really represent that.
I don't know, man. I think Pepsi Man leaving the burning city is still a strike against him.
He didn't leave the burning city. He was racing through it and then ran up a burning building to save people.
But wait, if he could, if he could summon Pepsi, why didn't he use Pepsi to put out the fire?
Because that would require summoning the cans, tearing them open, and pouring it on it one by one, which is far less efficient than using a fire hose or hydrant. And he was trying to get to the.
I feel like
he was trying to get to the people. He was trying to get to the people in a burning building to help and take care of them, not put out the fire, since that was where the firefighters were concerned. In the game, there's another level where he literally runs through the desert to get to victims of a plane crash who are settled down the desert and alone, to try and get them and comfort them before the paramedics could arrive. He just did that. He raced all the way through the desert to go to those people because they were thirsty and in need of it. He has a kind of like Spider-Man's spider sense. He kind of has a sense of whenever someone is thirsty and needs Pepsi. It's not really something that helps him in like warning for danger, but it does tell him when there is someone in the world who needs help and needs a drink. So that is what he does. He spends his whole time helping people in need of a drink.
That's how the fight starts. He senses that Squirrel Girl is thirsty.
Kind of, actually. In my fight script I had is that he was, in my fight script, without just talking about how much I love that, is he is running around the park because he senses there's someone but can't figure out where it is, and then crashes into her and accidentally destroys one of her cards, and then that starts the fight. He doesn't figure out until later that she was the one that he thinks needed it, and that's how they develop. Again, I will go over some of this in my pitch, but I really, really would love if, at least to a certain extent, we could get her negotiation and her friendship shown with how these two at least come to at least more of a compromise, similar to All Might versus Micah, at least.
Tanjiro
I feel like that would
Jonathan Joestar ending.
Kind of, but then we would just be quite literally reciting my entire script. There isn't much to go over with Pepsi Man in terms of intelligence. While he is pretty gifted with computers, especially in figuring out how to reverse quite literally hacking plans, this is with 1997 technology. So I genuinely think it is too outdated for him to have much of a chance at stacking up to Squirrel Girl in that regard. He speaks it, but he doesn't speak it nearly as well as her. If they were both given a computer task, she would get to it far faster than he did, in my humble opinion. And he has not, because he doesn't do a ton of fighting, but he certainly does it, he relies less on outsmarting opponents and more on his own powers to trick them and surprise them. He is not really a strategist because he is not in situations that requires him to be. He's not a meathead or anything. He is just not particularly gifted in this smarts department. He's average in that regard. Average human IQ, I think.
Average alien versus average mutant with an asterisk.
Who eats nuts?
Yes.
All right. Since we really need to get into strength, I'm worried we're going to end up running too long. Let's somewhat quickly go through speed.
Yeah, sure. We'll get through speed first and then strength.
Yeah, we'll get through speed. This should be relatively quick. Please go ahead while I get my renders ready.
Okay. So to go over speed, first of all, we have, could you bring up Squirrel Girl light speed? Did you? Okay. So here we have Squirrel Girl dodging. This is another showcase of her battle IQ, because she tricks them into firing at each other, but she also dodges their repulsor beams. Iron Man repulsor beams are like light speed lasers, light speed photons, right? So she's able to dodge these. At the very minimum, this would be like pretty relativistic, right? Or approaching light speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty undeniable. I fully agree.
Yeah. And then
and because this is quite literally getting into the weeds, whether necessary or not, is this more movement, reaction, or both? Since he is directly leaping over them.
Well, I would say kind of like she's moving away. She is moving away from them. Like they fired and then she moved
It's
like back.
it's entirely splitting hairs. Don't worry about it. Just more
Yeah.
curious because that is something that people read into. Like, for example, in the recent death battle, Master Chief versus Doomslayer, Chief's laser dodging was given more a reaction speed than a movement speed. Just as an example of why I was asking. But I do think this can legitimately count for both, since she's dodging them in multiple panels.
Yeah. And then could you pull up if that doesn't convince you, could you pull up hold on, let me see. I'm trying to find yeah. Sonic the Hedgehog parkour. Yeah. So she is dodging attacks from Whiplash.
Yep.
Whiplash is pretty damn fast. Really fast character. Um, this would back up the previous like Iron Man dodging laser feat that she did.
Yep.
Uh, then for pretty much her last big speed feat, reacting to the goat. So here, Squirrel Girl intercepts Craven the Hunter and Spider-Man.
Oh, what?
Do
Yep.
you understand how insane it is to intercept Spider-Man of all people?
Yes.
That's pretty crazy.
It's
Yes.
absolutely insane that she managed to pull this off because they were in the middle of this. They were in the middle of like throwing attacks at each other at full force, and she stopped this.
Yep.
She even stopped the webbing
All right.
from coming out
Yeah.
with a finger. Jesus.
Well, that's honestly not that hard to do. The webbing, that's not hard to do. But yes,
But isn't it like really sticky?
it's sticky, but more. It doesn't require that much force to like keep it from coming out. Honestly,
So,
like if it like broke it, that would require a way more force. But that was basically like just putting your finger over a faucet.
so
Oh,
overall,
okay.
I would say at the very minimum, you put Squirrel Girl at around relativistic, and if you wanted to argue for higher, you could certainly put her at light speed or even faster than light.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. I don't really have counters to this as much as just going over Pepsi Man's current speeds that I have calced. There are now for this, I do have his running speed and reaction speeds. So please bring up outrunning hover cars. In the Pepsi Man video game, you can outrun and dodge the likes of trains, motorcycles, and trailer trucks, and you have the running and you have the run button to move faster. In the novel, in the third story, which is set in the future, it says that this guy, Abbas, again, Japanese, has a prize hover car that he races through. And then it says the speedometer had already exceeded the maximum of 300 kilometers, which is 186 miles per hour. And then a shining man dressed entirely in silver passed by the hover car. It doesn't really say that he is especially trying or not. It just says that he passed by. So at minimum, he can run over 186 miles per hour. And I do think he has much fire. He is capable of much faster running speeds that we have never seen before. But that is currently where he is at for running. Now, how about dodging? Well, for dodging, he can survive lasers, but he didn't dodge them. But he has dodged bullets. If you will bring up bullet dodging, plain and simple. In this point, Pepsi Man and two people were being held at gunpoint by Chin, good old Chin, and he is pointing a black gun at him, which, according to the translation, is a Browning. And then, as it says, is, what are you going to do to Pepsi Man? Once I've confirmed his true identity, I'll hand him over the company. Well, if I can't, they said I don't mind shooting him. Get ready, Pepsi Man. Beat was ready with his Browning again. And then what it said was that, what said is, sorry, I'm on the wrong side of the page. On the left side, it says, as the black has pointed at Pepsi Man. Oh, Pepsi Man, there's no need to be surprised. This is Pepsi Man's figure became blurred. A gunshot. The sound of a bottle being broken. Rico and Reed screams. I'm pretty sure that based on this description, although I could be wrong, Pepsi Man can move faster than bullets since he became blurred before it fired, dodged it, the bottle was broken, and then he avoided it. So at minimum, he is fast enough to dodge bullets, or at the very least, he anticipated it, though I doubt that. And then it says, of course, on the left side, Rico quickly threw a Pepsi bottle that was lying on the floor of Pepsi Man. The Pepsi that remained in the bottle rained down on Pepsi Man's body. His body gradually began to glow silvery, thereby confirming that he regains his energy when that happens. But either way, at minimum, Pepsi Man is subsonic. There is another time in the novel where it says he moved so fast he leapt out an apartment window into his Corvette and drove off faster than the eye could blink. So I don't know how fast that really gets him, because again, it's hard to read the description of it. But at minimum, Pepsi Man can move subsonic, which is nowhere near as good as Squirrel Girl's relativistic feats, but it's still nothing to scoff at. She is still going to be able to hit him more than he could hit her based on speed alone, but he's not exactly a sitting duck or just merely moving fast enough to outrun a truck. They're both pretty fast in their own right.
Well, yeah,
Now,
I will say though, Chin is still a weird name for a character.
I'm not arguing that either, but it's the name they gave him. And again, the novel is really hard to translate. And if someone out there someday does properly translate it all into English, I will go over this better. It's just very difficult. But
That's
we've got a lot. We've got a lot to talk about with strength. Would you please let me start first? Because I have some really confusing stuff to get into for this.
All right, sure. Pepsi Man, go.
Thank you. And to update with the chat for floating shopping list, he can potentially grow to the size of King Kong. That's really debatable, and I didn't want to include it. So for those unaware, something that is really popular in Japan is little collectibles like bottle caps, which came in little plastic bags like mystery figures that are zip tied to Pepsi bottles. When you open up, you get a tiny figure of Pepsi Man doing something that fits on top of a bottle cap of soda, plastic bottle cap. And one series that they did is called Monsters, and it included several of the Universal, as in Universal Pictures, monster films, including Frankenstein's Monster, The Invisible Man, Bruce the Shark from Jaws. Pepsi Man was seen getting eaten alive by Bruce, and he survived that. Pepsi Man met death, or at least the Grim Reaper. But one of them is a giant gorilla, not as a big gorilla towering over Pepsi Man, though they're about the same height, about to crush him with a boulder. And people will believe that is supposed to be King Kong. And if it is, that means that Pepsi Man is roughly the same size as him in that model. However, that's really easy to debunk or just say that's just the scaling of a bottle cap figure. So I didn't think it was worth arguing. If at the absolute most we did give it to him, that creates a much bigger target for Squirrel Girl to deal with, and she is no stranger to fighting giant foes. Now for the strength, and oh boy, this will be fun. We're just going to get straight into it as I try and explain this. Let's start with NASA Pepsi 1. I'm going to explain this the best I can. This is all from the third story in the novel. Pepsi Man is a warrior from outer space. He came to Earth at the end of the 20th century attached to a space shuttle. NASA Pepsi 2, please. The novel is the only source of any backstory for Pepsi Man, and I think it is a valid source because it is an official story. It was in this room that mankind first encountered an alien life form. On the screen, several men in protective suits surrounded a table. A shiny silver object was placed on the table. One of the men approached and poked the object with a rod-like object. The object instantly became brighter and began to wriggle and squirm. The rest of the group's eyes were glued to the platform where Pepsi Man's shining figure stood. Pepsi Man is an alien metal that came to our planet in the 20th century, was discovered by NASA, directly by NASA, and seemed to be created by accidentally interacting with the Pepsi logo. NASA Pepsi 3. Now, here's the fun part, other fun part. These two people, one of them being Pepsi Man, is talking to Abbas. And as it says, Pepsi Man thrust out his palm, the surface of his palm swelled up, and a can of Pepsi appeared. Abbas looked at Pepsi Man, nodded, picked up the can, opened the pull top, and drank in one gulp. He felt his whole body fill with energy. On the second part, bottom page, Pepsi Man suddenly plunged the key into Abba's left chest. Once you drink a can of Pepsi directly given to you by Pepsi Man like this, it will transform into a key. And then the key passes into your body, kind of like a hologram, and just goes in. It doesn't hurt you, you just feel it. And then, as Pepsi Man explained, when I landed on Earth, a scientist made a mistake, and I was born by fusing with the Pepsi logo. I think Pepsi 4, NASA Pepsi 4. Pepsi Man's backstory is basically, I am an alien from beyond your galaxy. I came to Earth as a sentient metal, was turned into Pepsi Man to give the world hope and Pepsi so that they can be refreshed and supported, and I can create other Pepsi Man. Right here, when Abbas, who had completely transformed into Pepsi Man, the original Pepsi Man, said with a laugh, "We are not just two people. I was Pepsi Man number 1, in charge of the East Coast, and you were originally number 6, in charge of the Far East in Asia. Geno will soon be regaining his memories as number 28, in charge of the West Coast. We, the metal with a will, divided ourselves of our own volition. While distributing Pepsi, we secretly expanded our base and waited for the time for the final battle with Ender. Can you feel it? The telepathy of friends calling out to each other. Each of us has a strong desire for freedom. Soon our thoughts will become a huge network. That moment will be the moment of battle." The sound of schwa rang out from cities all around the world, and people began to hold Pepsi in their hands. Everyone looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, tilted the can up, and drank it down, and the sparkle returned to people's eyes. Yes, this is all insane. Yes, this is all only in the novel. But this is my big, this all counts, and this is canon. It's an official novel. It was released by PepsiCo in Japan. It exists. It is not fan material. There is nothing else that contradicts it or any official backstories, even by Pepsi Man's creator, that debunks this or does not support it. And my final point for the day, because this does tie into strength, kindly bring in Pepsi Convoy number 1.
Wait, Convoy? Wait. What? Oh.
Meet the Transformer Pepsi Convoy, a 2005 Autobot.
Oh.
According to the Transformers wiki about Pepsi Convoy, which is an official figure, has an official action figure you can currently still find online, and is officially both a figure created by Transformers that appears supposedly in, don't have written down, but he appears supposedly in the Japanese G1 continuity, and then a re-release of this model was used for an Optimus Prime toy. See, it says a new trailer redeco of the original Optimus Prime inspired by the 1985 special version of Optimus. According to the bio on the wiki for him, it claims that it was Pepsi Convoy was created by NASA using the same, quote, sentient metal that makes up the incredible hero Pepsi Man, according to author Hirofumi Ichikawa, who has done a lot of comic book stuff and Transformers stuff. This bio also alludes to Pepsi Convoy being a new body and identity for an existing Autobot rather than an entirely new Autobot. Again, this is a huge level of stretching, but I still think it is worth the argument of, please bring up Pepsi Convoy 2, as I discuss this further. I promise this is leading into an actual strength feat, but I have to explain this as this all goes into what we currently have for a backstory. Pepsi Convoy is an Autobot from the Generation 1 continuity family. Sentient metal is a kind of metal which was sentient. It was developed by NASA. Pepsi Convoy was created by the Autobots with sentient metal. According to the wiki about KISS players in the Japanese G1, although humans and Autobots work together on rescue operations within the stricken city, Japan becomes the epicenter of a growing anti-Transformer sentiment. In an effort to improve their public image, one Autobot uses human-built sentient metal to become Pepsi Convoy and shill Pepsi. So I think it's fair to at least argue, for the sake of let's at least try to give it to the poor guy. I think it's fair to say Pepsi Convoy, the G1 Transformer, is made of the same metal as Pepsi Man, both discovered and made by NASA. And because of that, I personally and oh so humbly feel it's fair to argue that whatever the highest durability the metal can survive in Japanese G1, Pepsi Man could scale to. Big could. But I think that's a fair
Okay.
argument.
All right.
Which brings us to
I
my
knew
final
about.
slide. I promise that my final slide is Pepsi Convoy 3. Go ahead.
Swear to God, he's
Okay.
gonna
I
bring
will
up,
say,
like,
This
high contact
backstory is
safety.
completely insane.
This is
Ah,
gonna be like
yes, the
Pepsi
people don't
Convoy
like
fighting
Transformers
Unicron.
anymore. I must shill Pepsi.
So,
Who
In
wins
talking
this
with our
I
hard?
feel something through my veins. It
Wait,
feels
what?
fizzy, almost like
in
Who
talking
went this hard?
Pepsi.
in talking with a member of the Fan Battle cast, I kept everyone anonymous since I wasn't able to ask them for permission in time. What they said is Japanese G1's highest durability feat is brown dwarf level. And then they got the response, what is brown dwarf? They're a real thing in our solar system in the middle between a gas giant and a small star. I did some more research and it translates to more mass than the biggest gas giant planets like Jupiter, but less than the smallest stars. Shorthand term, large planet. Their mass is approximately 13 to 80 times that of Jupiter. So then I did some minor math. I really apologize if this is wrong because I suck at calculations. But I tried to do my best here. Is I got Jupiter's mass. How many times Earth is that? Which is Jupiter is over 300 times larger than Earth. And then did the multiplication of low ball and high ball. Low ball would mean a brown dwarf is equivalent to 4,000 Earth masses, and a high ball of times 80 is equivalent to over 25,000 Earth masses. So what does that have to do with strength? Pepsi Man's metal body and its physiology and density, if comparable to Pepsi Convoy and Optimus Prime, which again, there are arguments for, would mean Pepsi Man's body could have the density and therefore striking power in his very fists equivalent to 25,000 Earth masses or large planet.
The Transformers being involved was the last thing I expected.
And very, very, very short, if anyone says, this is all bullshit, give me some real calculations or give me some actual feats. The biggest Pepsi Man has outside of this is around small building, potentially large building, as he is capable of smashing through all kinds of walls like Kool-Aid Man with no effect, including the likes of concrete station walls. He has fought the cast of the fighting game Fighting Vipers, which is a wall-level fighting game, but he has demonstrated excellent martial arts skills in doing so. He has leapt off of skyscrapers without dying. He is very talented and still has an impressive amount of physical feats. But I do think this Transformer scaling is valid and would tie into how powerful his punches could be and his sheer durability and density, because there is nothing that debunks this or like any sort of anti-feats, because anytime Pepsi Man gets hurt or crashes into something, he has never died from it or even really shown that much injury. We've seen him do things like get wrapped up in body casts, but I really do think that's more for comedic effect, if not a psychological, I feel like I'm hurt because I'm used to being human. I really do think it is consistent enough to allow this to stand.
Yep, sounds good to me.
With all that being said, Squirrel Girl still blows him out of the water in strength. Go right ahead.
Okay, so where to begin with Squirrel Girl? I guess let's start by, you mentioned Pepsi Man was a good martial artist, right?
Yes, he's got some good martial arts skills. I've seen him do flying suplexes, like grab you, spin in the air, and slam down.
Right. Then let's start there. Squirrel Girl is also a really good martial artist. Could you pull up Wolverine Fight Back?
Oh no.
So here, Squirrel Girl is beating the shit out of Wolverine. Wolverine, who is one of the greatest martial artists in Marvel, and Squirrel Girl is just casually dog walking him. Like, the only reason
Wow.
Wolverine got a hit here is because Squirrel Girl was distracted
Well, in the first panel, but yes.
in the first panel. Yeah. Um, if that isn't convincing enough, could you pull up Squirrel Girl versus Deadpool?
See, yeah, we said that they're friends. She's like the only friend Deadpool's ever had. He never tried to kill,
Yeah,
but they still fought.
they still fought. And you know why Deadpool never tried to kill? Because Deadpool would have gotten his ass beat. Like in here, Deadpool is a very talented martial artist. He's a mercenary. He kills villains that are stronger than himself, and he's still getting dog walked by Squirrel Girl. Like
The
Squirrel
Deadpool's
Girl,
the Deadpool's so unpredictable. Even Taskmaster can't keep up with his fighting style.
yeah.
Getting beat up by Squirrel Girl, and this is early Squirrel Girl too, as you can tell by her
Yeah.
design. This is in her earlier years as well.
Could you pull up Squirrel's win? This is what happens when Squirrel Girl wins. Oh, that's
Yes.
that's a separate thing. Oh god.
Oh yes.
Oh my god. Okay,
It is
I
a
might as
separate
well-
thing, but I'm
okay.
so glad you brought this up. I love this.
I guess
pick.
I
love this one.
I accidentally named two things. Squirrel wins.
Yeah. But no, we can still talk about this. I love this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Yeah, this Deadpool
Yep.
after getting beat up by Squirrel Girl.
Ooh.
But we could talk about this. Why not?
Oof.
So, Fing Fang Foom, could you pull up Bozo? This is
So-
Fing Fang Foom. If you don't know
Fing
who
Fang-
he is, he's basically this dragon enemy that Iron
In
Man
purple
fights.
pants.
Yeah, in purple pants. Yeah.
That's what made him iconic. He predated the Hulk. He was the first green monster in Marvel with purple pants, who once picked up the Great Wall
Oh.
of China and swung it around like a jump rope.
Yeah.
That is his kind of strength we're talking. Here he's fighting this robot thing. But who's
Yeah.
that at the bottom of his tail here?
Could you pull up Tiny Squirrel? There's Squirrel
Oh,
Girl.
she's so cute.
And speaking
yeah.
of cute, could you pull up Kawaii?
So
Oh.
yes, here with Fin Fang Foom, Squirrel Girl decided to be Nintendo 64 Bowser.
There she is. Look at how cute Squirrel Girl
yeah,
is.
I love these. I love this
Oh
drawing.
no.
Yeah, this one was really fun to read when I found it. Yep, she literally just takes the tail and decides, you know, I like Super Mario 64. You ever played it? I'll show you how it works.
Pull up LMAO RIP Bozo. There is Fing Fang Foom realizing he's so screwed. I love his face here. And then Squirrel wins the second one. Boom. Squirrel Girl literally swings Fing Fang Foom around like he is Bowser in Mario
Yep.
64.
And she just does that.
And
And because
how
because the background disappeared, we have no idea like if she's like on the ground, off the ground when doing this for
Yeah.
like leverage or whatever because they ran out of background.
I want you to keep in mind, Fang Fang Foom weighs over like 150,000 tons.
Not chump change, to say the least. Certainly impressive.
Yeah. Squirrel Girl is ridiculously strong. She could punch a Space Marine's head off, and I would fully believe it.
Oh, to say the least. But yes. So yeah.
Then we got other Squirrel Girl strength stuff. Like 100 squirrels versus one gorilla. I accidentally put an exclamation mark.
Of course she did that.
So here's Squirrel Girl injuring Gorilla Man. And Gorilla Man is a really strong guy. Like
Who looks like Frank West.
Yeah. Gorilla Man has fought Luke Cage. The same Luke Cage who can hold his own against like freaking powerful beings like the Hulk. And Gorilla Man is just getting kicked by Squirrel Girl and actually feeling it. That's crazy.
My gorilla body was never a match for a Hulk, even a government ripoff, Gorilla Man directly admits.
Oh. Well, we got more stuff. Don't worry.
Huh.
Could you pull up I Like Trains?
Feeling a kick is still very impressive. It takes a lot of strength to get someone to feel that you kick them. in the Marvel universe.
So here is Squirrel Girl getting run over by trains.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my God.
Dang.
remember that scene in the first Superman movie, you really, really, really old comic book fans, where he quite literally lays himself across the rail track to save the train? Here's Squirrel Girl having to do the same thing with her back and surviving it.
Yeah, she's just surviving casually being run over by a train.
You're transcending trains. Let's go.
Could you
Yep.
pull up Pikachu? Squirrel Girl has survived being electrocuted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotta remember, entire body can get electrified too. Right.
Yeah. Could you pull up Rhino Time?
All right, good.
This is Squirrel Girl fighting the Marvel villain, the Rhino, and taking attacks from him. She even manages to push Rhino off of her. That is
Okay.
absolutely crazy. You know Spider-Man struggles with this guy?
Yes, he does.
To even
Craven the Hunter struggles with this guy.
yeah. Like this guy's strength is absolutely insane, and the fact that Squirrel Girl can take blows from him is crazy.
Yeah. I also want to point out and geek out about is that in this scene, they're also fighting with her, quite literally, she calls it this flying squirrel suit, which has flaps on the arms that allowed her to glide and fly in the air. I've rarely ever seen her use it, but it is really cool, and I wish she would use it more.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're also surviving falling from the clouds back onto Earth here.
True.
She literally says matching fall rate and then manages to keep up with how fast he's plummeting, and he is much bigger and heavier than she is.
All right. Could you pull up I Am Iron Man?
Oh, you are? Good to meet you.
So Iron Man makes a statement here where he admits that if Squirrel Girl were like an enemy, they would have to bring in the entire Avengers to beat her, to have a chance at beating her. Now you may be saying, what the heck? This is not even close to being accurate, right? Well, let's bring up Squirrel Girl solos.
Right.
Okay.
Squirrel Girl beat the
Loading
shit
slow.
out of all these heroes in like 26 seconds.
Yep. With just some scratches on her legs.
Yep. On the floor there is Captain America, Black Widow, Spider-Man, and I'm pretty sure you can see a few more, but they all got into a fight, and it lasted 26 seconds, and Squirrel Girl won.
Yep. And for another quick bit of comic history you don't care about but need to know in order to understand this is these last two are from Squirrel Girl Beats Up the Marvel Universe, which involves her evil twin, Aline, which is a long story there, but Aline is directly comparable to Squirrel Girl Doreen Green. So both of them are consistent with each other. So it is fair to scale her to it. And Aline herself did beat up most of the Marvel heroes.
Yep.
So yes, they are comparable to each other. This is all really good stuff. The only thing I'm really looking for left, since I'm not sure about our time, is you showed the Rhino and the train. Are there any other impressive durability moments from Squirrel Girl? Because that is something I do think is important to keep in mind here.
Durability.
Yep. Just any signs of her surviving, because we've seen what she does fighting people. Any scenes of like her surviving hits from others.
She survived being slapped by Dormammu and smashed into a wall by Dinosaur Ultron and punched by a frost giant. And she also survived a satellite being crashed into her.
Works for me. Thank you. Just some good examples of that. Because again,
yeah,
I said before we started this debate for the audience, I wanted to focus on-screen feats for her because the off-screen feats thing, one is not nearly as big a part of her as people think it is. That really was only a thing in the first few years of her comic, of her being a character, and is really phased out. And that's not how she fights in general. But beyond that is, while she's extremely good at fighting people, she rarely takes hits from others. Not never, but she rarely takes hits from others. And of course, strength and durability are not equal. So if, like, say, for the example of it is with the infamous panel for defeating Thanos, we never saw her take a single hit from Thanos. So we don't know if she can take that level of power being hit in the face by it, which is why I asked. But those were very good examples to use, like getting hit by Dormammu. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, she got slapped by Dormammu. She got punched by a frost giant. She got smashed by a dinosaur into a wall. And she no-sells punches from Rhino, of course.
Right.
And
Okay.
yeah.
I had a feeling you were going to bring this up. While this is a very impressive feat with her defeating Dormammu, I do think context is crucial, is that this involved getting help from Loki and summoning this army of ghost squirrels that managed to banish him. She would not be able to do this on her own.
I could pull up
with all due respect.
Yeah, I know. But I could pull up Ghost Squirrel Stampede because it's cool.
It's very cool. Just I want to clarify for the folks at home. And it's one of those in the analysis, whoa, she defeated Dormammu. In the post-analysis, actually, this golden tree was defeated through the power of Loki's ghost squirrels and Squirrel Girl, and is not something she could do on her own, as she did not lift the entirety of Dormammu off the ground on her own based on this one comic panel.
But I can pull up Squirrels versus Doom.
Oh, please do. Let's absolutely do
this. Pull up Squirrels versus Doom.
Oh, please do. I do love dogging on this.
Dr. Doom is getting his ass beat by these squirrels.
1991 Dr. Doom.
He cannot believe it. He is getting absolutely destroyed by these squirrels. Look at it. Look, Dr. Doom is cursing them.
Let me do my best Doom impression for this. Confound these wretched rodents! For every one I fling away, a dozen more vex Doom! For clarification, years later in the comics, years later in Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, he personally denies this happened and claims that that he was managing them just fine to one of Squirrel Girl's friends. He denies that this happened and genuinely hates Squirrel Girl. He barely respects her, but he still is enemies with her. And then when they fought a second time, he only defeated her by sending her into the past to get rid of her. And she then found a way to come back and quite literally pulled a Deadpool and Wolverine by getting Squirrel Girls from all over time, including a future version of her, to defeat Doom by overwhelming him with Squirrel Girls instead of squirrels.
Crazy work.
He hasn't just been defeated by her. He's been defeated by her repeatedly and got defeated by 20 of her at once.
Absolutely
there we go.
Insane work.
Yeah, here's a good example. Directly tanks a punch from Doom and then dodges another one as he claims that Galactus is pathetic and thinks he is better.
That's classic Doom for you.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, this is what I talk about. This is Unbeatable Squirrel Girl years later in real time where they met and fought again. So yeah, for the most part, I think that really covers, one last thing. I promise is the last thing I want to bring up before verdicts and jury. And of course, answering a question in the chat, but I keep forgetting to bring this up. In the Pepsi Man video game, after you play through the story mode a first time, you get some extras, including some skins. You get classic Pepsi Man, which is silver and red. You get a wireframe form for some reason that does nothing except look cool. But then if you really wanted to make this extremely hard game harder on yourself, you get invisible skin, where he is quite literally invisible and you get an outline of him when running to try and make out while going. He can willingly turn invisible, which is pretty helpful in a fight against someone like this. But like you said, she has the walnut dust, which she used to scope out invisible lasers. She would be able to hear him since she has very good hearing. And of course, one of her best friends is Miles Morales. I wrote this in the script. She's friends with Miles. She has experience with people who can turn invisible. So it's another great power he has that just wouldn't help too much. Kagura, was there anything else you wanted to share, like fun facts, things you learned about Squirrel Girl, other feats, anything you'd like to bring up before we get into final verdicts? Kagura?
Oh no, I'm good. Yeah, go straight.
Okay, I couldn't hear Kagura there again, so wasn't sure.
Are they still here?
I don't hear Kagura. I hear everyone else.
Oh,
Oh
there.
no.
Oh, he just left.
Okay, we will get them back.
Kagura died.
I
Well,
Yes,
looks like
I
the
might-
Pepsi Man sweep,
since-
folks. Let's go.
since I'm running,
All
since I'm
right.
technically running this, I might as well do my verdict first then, or at least I'll try to. Is of course I'll give the shorthand version without going into my endless diatribes about this matchup. But the short version is this matchup is very special to me. I came up with it quite literally over 2 years ago now. It has been around for nearly 2 years, and it is very special to me. It is my most wanted matchup for Death Battle. These two characters mean so much to me, especially Squirrel Girl. They're some of my favorite characters of all time. And verdict wise, it's really been fun researching this one and figuring out how much closer it can really get. But in the end, I think Pepsi Man can win in the 100 fights method, of course. He can certainly pull off a few wins, but not a lot of them. But how he would win is through his overwhelming arsenal that trumps Squirrel Girl's, his variety and versatility and odd powers, keeping her on her toes and surprising her, his speed, doing his best to keep up with her. Kagura's mic stopped working. I am so sorry. If you want to type out your verdict in private chat, I can read it out loud for everyone. Is that he has the arsenal, he has the stamina the longer the fight goes on to keep up with her and can repeatedly get his energy back. And he has the incredible density and durability to stay in the fight a lot longer than people might expect, even with her impressive strength. And in the end, as many times as Squirrel Girl might pull off just what she needs to Pepsi a win, it is Pepsi Man who will simply go nuts for the occasional victory. In the end, these two should be the best of friends, no matter whatever situation it may end up in. So, all folks.
So Kagura seems to be having some problems.
Yes.
If he wants to, he can't hear me, so saying this out loud. I was gonna say he could DM me his verdict and I could say it, but
Yeah, I offered
I
to
am.
put in private chat.
Yeah, but the private chat doesn't look good on stream. I
Okay.
will say that I am unbiased and do think that Squirrel Girl wins and have been paying attention, so I feel like I could give a pretty good verdict for Squirrel Girl
All
right now.
Could
as-
you
as like a
also put
sub-in.
the? Could you also put the poll up?
I will put the poll up.
Thank you. And the very last part of my verdict is, as I talked about, is how Pepsi Man works and making multiple Pepsi Man in the future, and that you are a human who can become one. Is that I feel like in the end, Pepsi Man would lose the battle, but with the new person he'd met, this incredible hero Squirrel Girl, I really don't see a reason he wouldn't feel it was right to give the power to her, so that Pepsi Man may live on through Pepsi Squirrel, but Pepsi Man himself still dies and loses the death battle.
Is that supposed to be
In
a
the
third
end-
option in the poll? Like this, a weird
No, that's
like
just my
moral
part of my
victory?
That's part of my verdict.
Okay.
Again, that's more about
Pepsi
the verdict and how the
transcendence.
fight would end. That's not because it would still count as a Squirrel Girl victory. Just how the persona of Pepsi Man lives on in her as he gives her the power directly, similar to Captain Falcon, if that makes sense.
All right,
In my so humble opinion,
all right.
that is my take on it. I know that it was basically my character loses, but still. But like I said, this isn't one that I was focused as much on a debate as much as talking about these two and their insanity. So, which jury member would like to go first?
Well, wait. Squirrel Girl has a verdict.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Kagura. That was so sorry. That's so rude. I'm so distracted.
So Kagura, you can DM me on Discord. Anything? I hope you can hear me. You can DM me on Discord. You want me to mention in specific, but really, it's just kind of like, all right. Kagura has one last thing he wants me to pull up as a verdict.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, sounds about right.
I'll just leave that on
That's
screen.
great.
Yep.
Anyway,
That's great.
so Squirrel Girl wins because none of Pepsi Man's higher versatility you were talking about really has a way to deal with just her higher stats. Like she should just have that higher durability, like she tanks hits from Doctor Doom, and despite context, that's still like Doctor Doom.
Yeah. certainly.
she takes hits from Dormammu. Like Dormammu smacks her, and then like she's not dead. Dormammu would have no
Yeah.
reason to like hold back to human level punches.
Right.
At worst, that's like
Yeah.
universal durability.
Mhm.
There's like other characters you brought up, like Frost Giants in Marvel can like box with Thor and stuff. So it's just like no matter what way you do it, there's gonna be like scaling for Squirrel Girl that's gonna get her higher than Pepsi Man, no matter what.
Very fair.
I think that's really all I have to say on the matter. Like, universal minimum is higher than star level Pepsi Man.
Very fair. Thank you.
I hope Hager approves of my overall summation of his points. We can get to the voting now.
But what if I scaled Pepsi Convoy to G1 Optimus Prime, who scales to Bayformers Prime, with the Mountain Dew robot that everyone forgets is in the Bayformers films, since Mountain Dew is part of Pepsi, and I scale that Transformers to the IDW ones to get them up to Unicron's level.
That would still be weaker than Dormammu.
I
That's
kid.
crazy.
Yeah. If any of you are curious or do remember, look up Dispensor, who is literally a Mountain Dew themed Transformer who is in the Bayformer films. So if you're curious, there are quite literally
Yeah.
2 PepsiCo Transformers that truly exist.
He's like the weakest Transformer because he doesn't even have like an actual like energy weapon. He just has like a grenade launcher that shoots cans of Mountain Dew. So
Yep.
it's like he has like a glorified potato cannon as opposed to like an actual energon weapon.
Still beats Homelander.
And he appears in the IDW movie comics, and it says he was just killed by Ratchet.
I would rep Homelander in that debate. I think he's got a chance.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Dispensor versus Homelander. There's our bonus cast.
All right.
Okay.
Wraith,
Who
you're
on
in
the
the
jury wants
top
to go?
left most.
Yeah.
Who do you think
Great,
wins?
go ahead.
I think the strength advantage takes it to Squirrel Girl for me. Is like, I mean, when you tank a hit from fucking Dormammu, like, I mean, come on.
Also, I feel like what's more blatant for an power feat that's relevant in this fight than the Squirrel Girl literally chewing through a wall of metal. She might just eat Pepsi Man alive.
True.
That would rely on her. That would rely on her teeth having the strength to chew through a large planet durability. Again, density.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
I would have argued it strong. I would have argued that stronger and asked how thick the steel door was or whatever she chewed through if I felt like that was a lot closer gap. But I do not think that's enough for her to do more than scratch his body. I think her actual punches would do more damage to him than her claws.
Well, the jaw is the most power. Isn't the mouth jaw the most powerful muscle in the body or something?
Can you like bite
Well,
a person's
did
finger
she-
off? Like,
did she-
I swear that's
Did
like the
she
thing.
Did she hit Doom with her jaw or her fist?
I don't think her fist is infinitely stronger than her jaw.
I didn't say infinitely,
think
but we
the
haven't
whole-
seen her jaw hurt someone that hard.
But if your fist is infinite in AP because of scaling to Dormammu, then your jaw is not going to be below star level.
I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at more like that sounds out of character for her.
I mean, it is out of character.
She knows he's sent. She knows
I'm
he's
just
sentient,
saying
so that
that
would look really
she-
out of character.
That should be within her capabilities
Fair enough.
if
fair
she
enough.
so desired to.
Fair enough. And like I said, Pepsi Man has survived the biting force of Bruce the Shark being quite literally stuck in his mouth in the figure. There is no question about it. The shark was trying to eat him. So he has experience with that too. He is not going to let her jaws get close to him.
Mm.
All right, Molek.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. For the first like hour, I actually was kind of leaning on Pepsi Man's side. You're actually bringing up some really cool points for Pepsi Man, and then the strength happened.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Squirrel Girl here. I just think that's a bit too big of a gap for Pepsi Man to deal with.
I
Not to
completely
mention
get it.
Squirrel Girl just being a superior fighter, like fighting Wolverine,
Yeah,
Spider-Man, Black Widow. Like, come on, you can't ignore that.
But yeah, and
I
again,
gotta
that
get
was
to-
part of why I insisted on doing strength last, was both explaining the confusing as hell backstory, and also because that was what everyone was going to expect is, well, she just has strength, so she wins, and I wanted to at least discuss it
Yeah.
further than that.
Mm.
But thank you, I'm glad you liked that. So, Polaris.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like the strength advantage seems to be pretty crazy.
Kagura has brought up some more things he wants me to bring up. He thinks that she can slice Pepsi Man with a knuckle knife. She thinks that she can tank his blows, and Kagura says that the squirrels give her a numbers advantage.
Yes, I'll agree on the squirrels. I don't know about the bone knuckles, like I said, but again, that could just be pedantic. And yes, on the blows is she could survive his blows, but I feel like eventually, if he wore her down enough and hit her enough times, it would eventually do it. But I do completely agree on the squirrels. As helpful as the Pepsi cans are, they are not sentient, and he cannot command them like an army in response. So yes, I do agree there.
Yeah, those just seem like he gets outstatted. Though I think Pepsi Man could probably win in an equal stats scenario.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, is again he has the stamina advantage there, and it really goes a long way because it's just they're literally both, like, let's say, fighting for over half an hour and they're both exhausted. Pop a Pepsi can, drink, back in action. He literally pops them like he tanks. So yes, equal stats would be a very interesting way to look at this, but of course, in the grand scheme of things, in a fair fight. Of course, you are representing Coca-Cola, so your opinion is invalidated. Dark Lord, go.
That's -1.
Okay, yeah, I do agree that Squirrel Girl like reasonably should like stomp down and back, but I'm gonna vote for Pepsi Man purely out of pity, and also to my ever loving love for the PepsiCo company and the fact that they make Mountain Dew, I think, and that's the fucking Call of Duty drink. And yes,
Cheers. And yes, they are Mountain Dew.
yes,
So yes,
I
cheers
love
to that.
Mountain Dew. I love being a gamer, MLG Pro. Am I right, my fellow kids?
They put Master Chief in the Mountain Dew. It has to be good.
To put the Master Chief in the shoulder.
Okay, I think we can be starting to wrap up the poll now. All that is really left, in my so humble opinion, since I have famously one of the most confusing pitch matchups, not the most confusing, but one of the most confusing in all the pitches. What do you think on this matchup, and did this cast help sell you on it in any way?
I would say
This goes for everyone.
of all the pitches I've seen, I would describe it as the least intuitive matchup. Every other matchup that's even weird is like, well, I kind of can immediately see the connective thread. This is when you look at it and you're just kind of like, what?
Counter argument: Eggman versus Griffith, but sure.
Oh, don't
See what
talk
you're
about
saying.
that one.
No,
Even that one at
I
least
felt it
has
was-
the intrinsic
Mine-
connection of their bastards.
To
The
say what I
guys
have
who
been saying
everyone wants
repeatedly,
to fucking kill.
mine has connections and genuine thematics.
Drinks Pepsi.
But
Pepsi.
Eggman is the Eggman.
And he does have the master plan.
He does.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the matchup from our wonderful jury?
Drink
I
Pepsi.
mean, when I first encountered the matchup, I'm not gonna lie, man. I was so fucking excuse my language. I was so confused. But after you
Language is totally
explained
fine.
it to me, it does.
Everyone is.
Yeah.
I am not
I'll be
kidding.
honest.
Again, with this matchup existing for like 2 years, I created before I even became a member of the community and all that. Almost, I'd say 80% of the reactions anytime someone meets it for the first time is, "What is this? This doesn't make any sense. What are the connections? Doesn't Squirrel Girl just win?" Etc. But then the more I explain it, and it has really developed a life of its own over time, and I really do think the thematics have presented themselves more the more I've looked at it. People get sold on it the more they learn about it, or at least more they understand it better. It is not one that really is very self-explanatory at face value, outside of, I guess, their memes. But especially considering Pepsi Man was directly inspired by American superheroes, I think that's pretty valid.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess maybe a good way to maybe kind of describe it is you're kind of making some good arguments for why it's a thematic matchup, but you would posit that this is the best option for both, right?
I currently posit it is my favorite for both. I think it is the best for Squirrel Girl at this time, since I don't like a lot of her others, though I do like ones like Nakoto-tan. And for Pepsi Man, I would argue this is one of his best thematically, but in terms of one that if you're really going to boil it down to a matchup, I would still admit something like Cool Spot and Sporticus do have more connective tissue to it, at least at face value.
Okay, could
So
you?
I stand by it is my favorite, but I can't defend it as the best option for Pepsi Man.
Well, I think if you kind of want to touch on why it's so good thematically for both, just in case people weren't kind of able to pick up on the general vibe throughout the cast, is like
Oh,
a
of course.
final statement. Why do you think this is the thematic best for Squirrel Girl?
Gladly.
Also, Squirrel Girl won. We forgot to mention that, but Squirrel
Yes,
Girl
sorry.
won.
I think it was with the poll at 71 Squirrel Girl, 28% Pepsi Man.
Yes.
I think that came out to 4 Squirrel Girl, 2 Pepsi Man. Is that correct?
No, one Pepsi Man.
No, because it was.
There were.
No, it was.
There were
'Cause
5
Dark Lord
votes.
did.
It was 4 Squirrel Girl, 1 Pepsi Man.
Right. Sorry, I accidentally included myself there, and I got
Dark Lord
confused
Master
because
was.
I'm not.
You
I'm
do
used to
not
being
get
on-
a vote, good sir. Dark
Sorry,
Lord was the
I'm
only
used
one
to being
to.
on jury. I'm used to being on jury, so I got myself confused there.
So I got
Sorry.
erased from reality.
Sorry. So yes, it was 5 Squirrel Girl, 1 Pepsi Man. Much like the chances of winning itself, I think out of 100.
I came back, I guess.
Okay. So yes, to final describe it, without getting too much into the weeds or melodramatic about it, is what I think it really boils down to, at least for me, is you can save the world and be a superhero, but you don't have to be a superhero to save someone's world. We talk about a lot about power and responsibility, but beyond that, we hear the phrase friendly neighborhood superhero a lot, especially from someone like Pepsi Man, from someone like Spider-Man. Sorry. But the thing about it is we don't really have friendly neighborhood superheroes anymore, especially on something like Death Battle, but even then in general. We're so used to superheroes having to take on these grander threats and trying to save all of the world or defend against an invading alien race or entire country under attack. And it's hard to find those superheroes, both in our lives and in fictional media, that directly look out for someone smaller than themselves, not just looking out for those above them. And I really do feel that these two represent that so much. It's not just in a case of, well, they don't just save the world all the time. Squirrel Girl, not only through her compassion, but through her desire and constant efforts to help anyone in need. I've seen her do things as small as take care of a few squirrels because they were getting kicked by Craven because he was in a bad mood. And then instead of beating Craven up and just calling at the end of it, she directly talked with him and tried to figure out a better method for both of them. Pepsi Man is the same in some ways. As the novel showed, he's done some ridiculous things and is an alien from another world, but he came to Earth to help it and to give it hope. And he quite literally spends the entire Pepsi Man video game running in the way of things that hurt him and getting in the way and crashing into things to help people. First level, some vending machines are down, so he races to a horde of people who are thirsty and want Pepsi and just makes it for them. Second level, you've got a burning building, people need help. He races to help them and get them something to drink. Third level, a plane crash in the desert, miles away from him. He doesn't know these people, but he goes out of his way to race all the way there and save them. And that to me, especially in my life and everything I've been through with experiencing stuff like communities and Boy Scouts, I think the world is missing a lot of friendly neighborhood heroes at this point. And we certainly have heroes. We have our first responders. We have people looking out for us, charities. And those are very important too. But there's something about it that, like, why do we always need a superhero who has to save the world? We, of course, don't. But sometimes I really think there's something special about the idea of two superheroes who do nothing but help someone in need and can make you laugh. And that's what Squirrel Girl and Pepsi Man does for me. And I really think they do that for each other.
You look like
That's
you're
my word
pledging
on it.
allegiance. But
Well, I pledge allegiance to this delicious Pepsi Cola that was personally provided to me by the wonderful Pepsi Man by running by a minute ago. Remember, Pepsi, it's better than Coke just because I said so, and you know I said it because I just did. So do your patriotic duty to get this red, white, and blue soda instead of the red and white soda, and go to your nearest store and demand Pepsi. And if they don't have any Pepsi, say the word, call out, and hope that Pepsi Man will arrive soon, deliver that refreshing, cold, icy taste of a refreshing Pepsi Cola.
Kagura has sent
and
me
nuts
a
are good for you.
very important message.
Go right ahead.
He says that he likes Squirrel Girl versus Pepsi Man.
Oh.
Then I won. As far as I'm concerned, that's what wins. For me,
Nah.
at least, that's what really wins.
To briefly
Thank you very
throw
much.
another matchup under the bus before this cast ends, I think your explanation is a good reason why this matchup is better than Pepsi Man versus Sporticus. Because in your matchup, it paints them both as heroes. Whereas with Sporticus versus Pepsi Man, there's no way to portray Pepsi Man in a good light in that fight. Because he's at best, he's woefully unaware of the dangers of Pepsi on health in that context of the fight.
But remember what I said about his athletic ability?
Yeah.
Pepsi Man, again, despite him literally promoting and delivering a sugary soda, is extremely athletically fit and loves sports of all kinds.
Well, yeah,
I'm
because
actually
he's
quite
an
a big fan of
alien metal.
Well, no, because that's what he likes to do. His athleticism, going around on a skateboard, surfboarding because he feels like it, getting to do some snowboarding until he falls off the slopes, all of that is just because he enjoys doing that. Despite what he promotes and what he stands for by doing so, good and bad, he is still a very physically fit guy, very well built. He does things like lifting weights and building muscle. There's an entire set of that bottle cap collection that's just him doing exercising with different poses. So with Pepsi Man versus Sporticus, it's healthy eating versus sugary soda, but both characters still represent a love for staying athletic and physically fit and enjoying the outdoors and doing things with people.
Pepsi Man
So
in
I don't
Lazy
think that
Town
really
is
throws it under the-
dangerous.
He's dangerous.
He's going to be doing some
unintentionally
sports.
dangerous.
He's going to inspire
un-
some other kids to start doing some sports. And then he's going to be like, all right, after this great workout, let's drink a bunch of Pepsi. They're going to be ruining their bodies. And Sporticus is going to be like, you got to get out of here, man.
Well, yes, that's what starts the fight.
You're a
in my
menace.
Yeah, that's what starts the fight.
Yeah.
And Sporticus wouldn't get mad at him about it. He just asked, please don't do that. I'd prefer a nice water.
And imagine if
would get
Pepsi Man
confused by
wins,
that.
then we got a bunch of Pepsi machines all over Lazy Town, and it's just it's a nightmare for the showrunner that was trying to support healthy eating and sports candy.
You just
He'll
have
still, he'll still promote athleticism. Like I partially agree. I still love this matchup, but I do still like Pepsi Man versus Sporticus, and I don't like you throwing it under the bus. I was hoping you were going to throw a Squirrel Girl matchup under the bus because she has plenty of bad ones there that have nothing to do with her being a superhero or any of that. And there's plenty of bad Pepsi Man matchups too because we really need Pepsi Man versus Coke Santa. When Coke Santa does is stand there.
You lay off my man Santa, all right? Hey, don't cross that line. That's a
I can
homie.
talk about other Pepsi Man matchups all day, but I will actually leave it on this. I think this is a pretty fair point to make, believe it or not. Pepsi Man versus Squirrel Girl, he has a better chance of winning than Pepsi Man versus Cool Spot. I am dead serious. Because with Squirrel Girl, he's fighting one Squirrel Girl and her squirrels, but he has to kill and defeat the one Squirrel Girl. With Cool Spot is every red dot on a 7-Up logo on Earth. It is a race of little creatures. Every single 7-Up logo is a Cool Spot. I'm not making that up. So Pepsi Man has to destroy and defeat everything that has a 7-Up logo on it in the world.
Wait, is that the concept? I thought it was a cool spot, like just one of them.
Nope, that's the concept. There are multiple cool spots, and that's how it works. I learned this a while back. So yeah, Pepsi Man is literally fighting an entire race.
Well, if Pepsi Man's
With that
star
matchup.
level, can't he just destroy the planet and thus get rid of all 7-Up in existence?
Oh, maybe.
We haven't seen Pepsi Man breathe in space.
He doesn't have
He
organs.
traveled Earth in the space
He's
shuttle.
metal.
But he can turn back into a normal human. He's not a robot. He's not a robot. He's just a metal.
He's
And yes, there is a difference there. But remember,
But
he's
Huh?
still a human. or not a human. He can still turn back into a human. Pepsi Man is like a superhero form. Like think of Shazam.
Then don't turn
Then
into
why
a
doesn't
human.
he just stay as Pepsi Man? Yeah, why doesn't he just stay?
Because then he's going to be floating out in space. He can't move. We've never seen him move in space. He landed on Earth in a space shuttle. He doesn't like fly in space. So then he's floating out there stuck for forever, bored.
All right.
All
Well,
he needs
he's
to do
gonna.
is just pull out some
And if he
cans of
blew up the
Pepsi and
planets,
use-
then
shake them, and
if he
then
blew
use
up the
them to
planets,
fly.
we would literally have
Yeah, that's
storyboard
that's a good idea. Yeah, use the
If he blew
Pepsi
up
to
the
fly.
planet, if he blew up the planet, we would have storyboard Osro levels of out of character writing. Pepsi Man here to
Okay.
provide thirst to all those in need. Oh, and I'm gonna blow up the world while I'm at it. Get rid of this red dot. Kaboom! 11 million dead today on the planet Earth thanks to Pepsi Man.
Anything
Galaxies
for the
across the
agenda.
world demanding Coca-Cola, only to learn it was also destroyed due to the planet blowing up. Pepsi Man is now the most wanted man in the universe. Fire at will, ladies and gentlemen. Fire at will. In other news, the superhero Squirrel Girl was the only survivor of the planet blowing up. People are still confused how this happened. Comics, I guess. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, this has been a wonderful experience. Again, this is my most wanted matchup. I'm actually pitching this next Thursday to Ben and Chad, and it really means the world I got to do this with all of you. It was really so much fun to experience it. So, Kagura, thank you so much. You were a wonderful opponent. I loved doing this with you. Wraith, Molak, Polaris, Darklore, and of course, Sherm. You all were great. A great jury and cast. Great to work with. And everyone in the audience, thank you so, so much. Remember to support Pepsi Squirrel, and we'll see you all soon. Say bye, Tippy.